Welcome back to Latest on Sports Podcast. It has been a minute, but we are back and ready to present you with probably our favorite episode, Draft Review. If you guys know anything about us, the draft is our favorite thing. It is the thing that culminates our entire year, so we're excited to bring a wrap up of our scouting and what happened within the season. And just to, freshen you guys up on our lives, it's been a minute. Just shout out to the best co-host on YouTube, Mr. T House, an all-conference safety season in football. So big shout out to him.
Thank you, Jake.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and just kind of review most of the positions that we scouted this upcoming season and give us just our input and our thoughts on how they did. So first off, we're going to dive into the quarterbacks. Now, if you guys want to click on our channel and scroll back to April, you'll see we called Tua Tagovailoa not even subtly a fourth-round pick. And just given his production this year, I think that argument could stand. I'm not going to sit up here and say that he's maxed out at his potential because that's obviously not true. But both T House and I had Justin Herbert over Tua Tagovailoa. And, the NFL honors are tonight. Justin Herbert's probably the best, if not tied for the best running for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Tua Tagovailoa not even in that mention. So good for Justin Herbert, an awesome season. So also one more thing I'd like to cover is the Jordan Love situation. Jordan Love was a first-round pick. The Packers traded up to pick 26 from 31 to draft Jordan Love in the first round. And Jordan Love was a healthy scratch the entire year. Jordan Love did not put on shoulder pads for a single game the entire year. He was the backup to the backup, the third string, and obviously that is not what you're expecting to see out of your first round pick. And I understand that. I'm not saying that we expect Jordan Love to outpace Aaron Rodgers this season or his rookie season, but what I am saying is if you're investing and trading up in a first round quarterback, you at least expect him to suit up in case your starter gets hurt. So I think that's kind of a telltale sign of what's to come for Jordan Love. And as you guys know, our motto here at LOS, we're not hoping a player plays poorly. We're not wishing a player plays poorly, but what we are saying is we're just going to analyze the present. And that being said, Jordan Love definitely has nothing that we can base our critique off of other than the fact that he did not put a helmet on for a single game.
Yeah, if you're the Green Bay Packers, you're trying to win this year, right? Or when the draft was happening. So they basically wasted a pick where they could have got a weapon that they really needed. Aaron Rodgers is an MVP with Devontae Adams, obviously, but imagine him with another weapon that they could have got. They literally have so many great players. They drafted decently well from that spot, but they still never got a playmaker, and that's kind of what I thought they were going to do with that pick. And, maybe Jordan Love is someone that is good down the road, but to me, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you're trying to win now. You got to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And to bounce off of that, we saw later in the first round, the 49ers select a receiver like Brandon Ayuk. Now, he struggled with injuries, but I picked him up on the waiver wire for fantasy football. And let me tell you, he was a baller getting me 19 to 20 points every single week. And so that's just another name at receiver that the Packers could have drafted instead of trading up for Love.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's an interesting pick.
Yeah. Another thing with the quarterbacks is Jalen Hurts. I actually had Jalen Hurts at 4, right behind Tua, very close. I had him above Jordan Love and also above Jacob Eason and so on. I liked Jalen Hurts. I thought he was pretty good, and I love that he got the shot to lead the Eagles, which he did. He had a very great end of his year, and so I think a Carson Wentz trade is coming soon. I just saw that on ESPN, and that should be very interesting to where he goes. Could he go to the Colts?
Oh gosh, I don't know how I feel about that yet, but just to wrap up the quarterbacks, we saw Tua struggle, which is kind of what both of us predicted. We saw Herbert come out and ball lights out the entire season long. It is now up for Offensive Rookie of the Year. We saw Jordan Love not even suit up for a single game, which again we predicted within our draft episodes. Yeah. And lastly, as T House said, we saw Jalen Hurts find success.
Yeah, and obviously we can't leave out Burrow. I thought he was doing pretty good, but injuries suck, and he just needs a no-line.
True.
So moving on, we got to get this going to the running backs. I'm happy to say that I had Jonathan Taylor as my number 1 running back.
JT.
And he had a great year. I honestly loved all the running backs in this draft. I didn't have a running back I hated, and all the running backs did very well. One of my sleepers that I said was A.J. Dillon, and he averaged 5 yards per carry. So He was a third string running back, didn't get a lot of chances, but when he did, he did very good, and he will be a great red zone presence for the Green Bay Packers in the next coming years. He's just a tank.
Yeah, and bouncing off that, we know Aaron Jones is in a contract year this year. And I think, honestly, the Packers, I'm not trying to minimize the effect that Aaron Jones has on a football game. He's a great back, but I believe he's asking for upwards of about $20 million with a lot of guaranteed money. And if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I'm going to let Aaron Jones walk and give my second-round pick, A.J. Dillon, who came out and had a great game against the Tennessee Titans in the snow of Lambeau Field. I'm going to give him a shot as my running back one and maybe retain a guy like Jamal Williams to stay on the team.
And you need one more speed guy, I think.
Exactly.
Another running back that did good, actually both of them did good, were the pair Swift and Dobbins. They both had good seasons, had glimpses that they could show that they could be one of the best running backs in the league. And they had good years. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another good player that got hurt, but he's in the Super Bowl. So there you go.
Yeah, and I actually had J.K. Dobbins as my running back one, and within that rushing offense, and that's exactly what it is in Baltimore, is it's completely a rushing offense. He definitely found success, and you could probably argue he was maybe a top 3 running back within that draft class. One running back that I'd like to hit that we haven't touched upon is Antonio Gibson. Now, if you want to go back and watch our Sleepers episode, 1, we'd appreciate it because it gives us views, and 2, we'd appreciate it because you'd understand where I'm coming from. Antonio Gibson was my ultimate diamond in the rough within that season. Just how fast and explosive, how strong he is. He's got a good frame. He's just an excellent player, and they cut Adrian Peterson, a longtime veteran in the preseason, so that Antonio Gibson could come out and split carries with J.D. McKissick. But Antonio Gibson ended up separating himself as the starter for the Washington football team. Still sounds weird to say that. But Antonio Gibson was a baller, and I'm just, looking back on it, I'm almost proud just to think that, Antonio Gibson was my ultimate diamond in the rough, and here he is coming out and succeeding.
It's a great prediction. One more running back just to mention before we move on to wide receivers was Cam Akers. You had him at 5.
I did, yeah.
He's good. He's going to be pretty good. He just needs to stay off the injury.
Yeah, I'd love to see Jared Goff necessarily is not one of the better quarterbacks, but seeing as they got Matthew Stafford, I think this might even open up the door to Cam Akers' success. I'd like to see the Rams personally move on from guys like Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson so that Cam Akers can get a little bit more playing time. And the reason I loved him is as a Colts fan, when you watch his film, he looks like Marlon Mack. He cuts like Marlon Mack. He sprints like Marlon Mack. Both of them coming from a Florida school, that might have something to do with it. I'm not quite sure. But that being said, I think our running backs were pretty head on. Moving on to receivers, one of my sleepers within the sleeper episode, we're going to keep alluding to it because I think we're generally pretty proud of our sleepers. I had Michael Pittman, and as a Colts fan, he came to the Colts. I think Michael Pittman just kind of started out in a rough place, and I think a lot of the rookie receivers did. I think the no training camp in preseason affected the receivers the most out of anybody because they don't have that time to get chemistry with their quarterbacks. They don't have that preseason to separate themselves.
You saw that with Judy.
Yeah, we definitely saw that with Jerry Jeudy, and just to even make things worse for Michael Pittman, you have a 38-year-old like Phillip Rivers coming in, who of course it's his first year in the system. What's he going to be throwing to? He's going to be throwing to these veterans such as T.Y. Hilton and other guys who are more established, and we definitely saw that. But Michael Pittman's still productive. I believe he had about 600 yards this season and had 2 touchdowns. He had over 100 total yards in the playoffs, so good playoff debut for him. But, not necessarily somebody that's going to jump off the board for you within the games.
Mm-hmm. Yep, moving on. We like to be right. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, we do, definitely.
And, one thing that I really pride myself on was how much I loved Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
I loved him. People had Justin Jefferson as far as 8, 9, and I had him at 3, right behind Lamb, and I didn't think it was a huge gap. I thought he was right there with CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. And, he is my rookie of the year just because he set records within that organization, did absolutely amazing, and I just loved watching him.
Yeah.
I love Justin Jefferson. I was very happy that he had a great year, and we got that one right, and it feels great.
And to defend myself, I just want to also say I had Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver 3, and that being said, we both had Jeudy and Lamb ahead of him, so you're thinking, well, boys, where does Henry Ruggs fall?
Oh, boy.
Well, he falls. That's exactly where he is in both of our charts. He definitely underperformed. I believe he had about 500 yards in this season. And one thing that I just don't understand every single scouting season is how everyone talks about the next Tyreek Hill, which really, it's just a short, small, fast guy. But that's not what Tyreek Hill is. One thing that you need to understand about Tyreek Hill is he's extremely physical. He's strong, he's stocky, and he's incredibly fast because he's muscular, not just because he's gifted fast. There's a difference between strong fast and gifted fast. Obviously, Tyreek, as fast as he is, he's gifted. But that being said, he's extremely muscular and physical. He knows how to win routes with speed. He knows how to win it with strength. And I don't think that Ruggs has that. And if you look back to even a couple years ago with Marquise Brown, everyone wanted to say Marquise Brown is going to be the next Tyreek Hill, and that obviously has not panned out to this point. So I just don't like the references to, especially in regards to Ruggs, about how these short, fast guys are going to be the next Tyreek Hill because they're short and fast, because that's disrespectful to Tyreek Hill. He's one of the strongest and most physical receivers in the league, and that's something that Marquise Brown or Henry Ruggs possess.
Yeah, I didn't love the Henry Ruggs hype either, and it showed because this year he just struggled, injuries, and so on. We both actually, I had T. Higgins high. You didn't.
Yeah, I did. I don't know. I didn't really like T. Higgins. I think it came down to the national championship last year, where Jeff Okudah kind of locked him up physically. But I'll be the first to admit I was wrong about T. Higgins. Still, nevertheless, I believe I had him around that 6 to 7 range. So it's not like I had him, as bad as I did Chase Claypool. Again, if we're going to admit our faults, I'm going to admit Chase Claypool. I had him at my wide receiver 15, below guys like KJ Hamler, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Colin Johnson. My main critique with Claypool is I just wasn't quite sure that he was going to figure it out in regards to the mental ability. I knew that he's extremely fast. He's 6'6". He ran a 4.4, not flat, but within that 4.4 range. But I just wasn't quite sure he was going to be able to understand that mental aspect of where to settle in zones. Just sometimes at Notre Dame, he looked a little bit lost where he was running. And obviously to have a veteran like Big Ben, that definitely helps. So
yeah, and we can talk about wide receivers all day, but one of the last points we'll hit with wide receivers is one of my sleepers. It was Tyler Johnson.
Yeah.
And everyone was sleeping on him. I mean, some people put him at 20. I literally had him at 10, and I wanted to put him higher. And now look at him. He's in the Super Bowl. And not only that, he's low on the depth chart because he's got Godwin, Evans, Miller, and so on, and AB.
Yep.
And he's still been getting in. He was in the NFC Championship, got that pass interference.
True.
He's made some crazy catches. That's what I love about him, is that he brings in everything. He makes some spectacular catches. That was my sleeper at the wide receiver spot, and he has turned out to be really good, and I really love watching Tyler Johnson.
If you haven't seen his catch versus Saints, go watch it. But not yet. Wait to finish the video.
Obviously.
Then go watch it. Moving on, we're going to briefly cover tight ends. The tight end group was mainly unproductive. The big name within the tight end group was Cole Kmet, but I think he's been rather silent this season. Playing in a team like Chicago, you're not going to get recognition as it is. But I don't think he produced to the point that the Bears wanted him to. But personally, my tight end number 2 was Harrison Bryant, who was drafted to the Browns in what I believe was the 6th round. Now, he had a fairly modest season in regards to stats, 24 catches, 238 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But that being said, playing behind a guy like Austin Hooper, that's decent production. And I think most analysts would tell you he's probably the best tight end within the rookie class.
Yep. Just to add on, not a lot from the tight ends. Me and Jake were watching the tight ends on the Combine Day, and we just didn't think that they stood out, and it showed this year. So moving on, we'll hit the O-lineman quick, give them some love. The tackles were really great this year. You had Wills, Wirfs, and Thomas and Becton. All had amazing years.
Yeah.
And guards, we moved to the guards. I actually had Lloyd Cushenberry at 3 for the the interior lineman, and he had a great year for the Broncos, so I was happy about that. I wish I would have rated Damian Lewis higher, because I watched LSU and I watched their O-line, and I loved both Lloyd and Damian. I knew I should have rated Damian higher because he had a great year for the Seahawks. So that's it for the interior lineman for me.
Yeah, and one of those things to bounce off what you're saying is, in regards to wishing you'd put people in some places, it's almost the sense that with me, at least in Henry Ruggs, when I scouted him, I'm like, I'm not quite sure this guy's a game breaker. But when you hear all these analysts talking about how he's going to be...
Second guess yourself.
Yeah, you start to second guess your scouting report. And I think if Henry Ruggs was supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be a 4th or 5th round pick, I definitely would have dropped him a lot lower than what I had him. But moving on to D-line, kind of similar to to the tight end group, just not a lot of dudes played. We had Chase Young, which I'm not going to lie. I still had him as my defensive end one, but I did not think he was going to be nearly as productive as he was this season.
He had a great year.
So big props to Chase Young, likely going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, which I'd appreciate because in Madden, I actually have his rookie premier card, and I could use that 96 defensive end on my MUT team. But, some other dudes on the D-line to mention are guys like Caleb Chasen. He had a fairly good week one. He picked off Phillip Rivers, but it got called back. He played pretty poorly in the first half of the season, but started to figure it out later in the season. But yeah, there's just not a lot of dudes that played, which, isn't a big deal. D-line is just kind of one of those positions that takes a little bit of time to blossom into, so.
Yeah, and you're not going to see a ton of production unless they get reported on, basically.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the linebackers. We had thought that Isaiah Simmons was one of the most athletic players in the draft, if not the most. And, I thought the Cardinals used him, but I didn't think they used him enough because he had 48 tackles, 1 INT, and so on. And I thought he was more of a 60 tackle guy in his rookie year. I thought he could have done that, but I didn't think that the Cardinals used him against the Seahawks. He got in at the end and then got the interception, which was very clutch. But I was confused. I haven't seen this guy all game.
Just to add on to Isaiah Simmons, he's an athlete, and I think it's probably going to take some time to put him in an exact position where he's going to succeed, because he can play safety. He played corner a little bit at Clemson. He can play outside linebacker in a stand-up or just in a pass coverage technique. And if we're talking about linebackers, I had Patrick Queen as my linebacker 3, but I do have to admit I was a little bit harsh on Patrick Queen. I didn't necessarily like his instincts, but he played fairly well. He was probably the leading candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year the first 4 weeks, and then started to die out. And with that, we're going to hop into corners. Corners. What an interesting group the corners were.
Draft day was crazy for the corners-wise. You want to start it?
Yeah, in regards to draft day, we had guys that we really, really liked, like Cameron Dantzler and Jeff Gladney, who went behind guys like Damon Arnett, who I believe I had as let me check it out. Here's my corner number 11. Yeah. So, and Damon Arnett kind of played like a corner 11. He was not necessarily all that well, but if we're going to talk about corners that did not play too well, I'm going to talk about A.J. Terrell. Now, A.J. Terrell is one of those guys that we did not like. Even before we started scouting, if you watch the National Championship, Jamar Chase kind of made him his little baby. That being said, Jamar Chase makes just about everybody but Cam Dantzler his baby, because we saw Cam Dantzler play pretty well against him.
We'll get to Cam Dantzler.
We'll get to Cam Dantzler. But A.J. Terrell, gosh, he did not have the best season. He was 46th in target separation, 60th in catch percentage allowed, 64th in passer rating allowed, 112th in targets allowed, which was 8 targets per game, 76th in yards allowed on the season, which equated to 74.2 yards per game, and over 1,000 yards allowed on the season. He was 68th in yards per target allowed, 70th in receptions allowed. But props to him for having the 16th highest burn rating percentage, highest meaning lowest, I guess, with a 0.9. So props to him. He didn't get burnt too often, but he let a lot of targets come his way, a lot of receptions, and over 1,000 yards on the season. So it's fair to say we hit A.J. Terrell right on the nail.
And we saw that coming. Moving on to other. You want to do the Dantzler?
Yeah, I got some stats on Dantzler. Now, Dantzler did not have an All-Pro year. He did not have a first-team All-Rookie year.
Yeah. But
he was productive.
He started.
Yeah, he was productive.
Good. And so he was my 5th corner, and people are putting him as far as back as 13, 12.
Yeah.
I love Dantzler in college. Texas A&M, or was it Mississippi State? They're both the same color.
Yeah,
but anyway,
Mississippi State.
Cameron Dantzler had such a great college year, and I loved watching him. He was able to stick with Jamar Chase, the best out of all the corners I saw. So I put him high, and so you know what? He had a great year, and I love that he had a great year, and I love being right about that.
And in regards to comparing a dude like Dantzler to Terrell, just a little bit of stats for you. Dantzler was 35th and 36th in receptions allowed and yards allowed, respectively. And that same statistic goes to 70th and 76th. 76th for A.J. Terrell. That is a 40 difference in regards to yards allowed from Dantzler to Terrell. So it's fair to say Dantzler played just a little bit better than Terrell did. But on the subject of corners, I'd like to shout out the Vikings. Shoot, they got my corner 3 and 4. Jeff Gladney at 3 and Cameron Dantzler at 4, all in the same draft, I believe, all in the same round.
You know, we said the Vikings had the best draft.
Yeah.
And I still stick with that. And I think the stats and the players prove it that they had the best draft.
You know, I'm going to disagree with you. I think the football team probably had the best draft with guys like Cameron Curl, who I believe.
You know what? That's a good point.
I believe, you know, as a Colts fan, I'm going to admit Cameron Curl is better than Julian Blackmon, whatever. But they got Gibson and they got the defensive rookie of the year. So, but yeah, I'm not going to try to minimize the Vikings draft class because I still think it was extremely productive. We cannot forget about the all-time rookie receiving yards leader, Justin Jefferson, in that draft class. Mm-hmm. So great job by the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, moving on to safeties. Safeties was really tough for us. We saw 2 of our favorite safeties we watched, Xavier McKinney and Grant Delpit, both go down with season-ending injuries. But one kid I watched almost every game I watched Minnesota, and that's how I got Tyler Johnson. That's how I also found Antoine Winfield.
Yep.
And I love Antoine Winfield. I put him at my second safety behind Xavier McKinney. And you know what? He's in the Super Bowl and he's going to start, and I love him. He just can fly. He's all over the field at all times. He's so smart, and he's going to the Super Bowl, and so I love that he's doing really good because he's a really great player.
Yeah, Antoine Winfield, definitely a baller for the Bucs defense this season. He had, I believe, probably the highest passer rating when targeted, but he was a force in the pass rush. He's like a Jamal Adams type, but not on the all-pro level just yet in regards to what they can do. But again, I'm going to admit one more thing I was wrong about, because if we're going to hype up all the things we were right about, I'm going to admit some things I was wrong about, and that is Jeremy Chin. Now, this was really probably my second season of really going full out on scouting. So that being said, scouting those smaller guys like Jeremy Chin coming out of a school such as Southern Illinois is a little bit more difficult for somebody who doesn't have as much experience like myself. And really when it comes down to those smaller school guys, what I want to see is just an absolute baller. Just somebody who makes every single play. And I'm not saying that Jeremy Chin wasn't a baller because he went in the second round and played extremely well in the NFL. But I had him as my safety 7. So I think I was maybe a little bit too harsh on Jeremy Chin. But last thing that I want to cover is kickers. I want to talk about kickers. Rodrigo Blankenship. He may or may not have sold the playoff for the Colts with his missed field goal. That definitely did not help at all. But Rodrigo Blankenship's specs, all-time leader in Colts rookie points. So good for Rodrigo Blankenship. I only wanted to hype up Rodrigo Blankenship because he builds a lot of Lego sets and he's cool like that. I don't actually really care about the kickers. So if you've got anything to say on the kickers, go ahead.
I don't. You know, we got through every position, so I'd like to just go back and name some guys that we didn't scout, but are players to watch for next year. You got L'Jarius Sneed, who had a great year for the Chiefs. He's a corner. Cameron Curl, safety for the Washington football team. He had a great year. Gabriel Davis, he started for the Bills for a while, and he was a good kid out of UCF. And finally, the guard, actually he moved around a lot. The O lineman from
the Patriots. Yep.
Michael Nwanyu. Great year for him.
Yeah, however you say his name, definitely a baller. I believe he's a 6th round pick, so that's a gem for Belichick and his crew. But that about just wraps up our scouting episode, our scouting recap episode. We're glad that we're able to formulate this into one big video because we put in a lot of time and effort into making our boards and really putting in the time to make sure we have an adequate scouting report on those that we do scout. So that being said, if you guys have listened to most of our videos, you know we usually conclude our videos with T-House telling us bring back NCAA.
But it's back. It is back.
Now, I'm not actually sure when it's going to come back.
Maybe 2023.
Maybe 2023.
On the new gen thing. But you know what? It's back, and that's what matters. They were listening to me, obviously.
Yep, obviously listen to our podcast. So with that, guys, we appreciate your time. If you like the video, go ahead and take 0.5 seconds of your day to give us a thumbs up. It's very appreciated. It helps us out with the algorithm. Leave a comment on anything that you think that we missed or anything that we hit on that you agreed with us. And with that, LOS signing out. Thank you guys for your time.
We were right about a lot of guys.
Yeah, we were right about a lot of guys.
We want to say that.
Thank you for your time.
Yes.